Good morning everyone and welcome back to the channel. Of course, if you're new to the channel, great big warm welcome and hello to you. Yeah, it's raining. My name's John Paul, this is the Seated Gun. So guys, we are on the road again, but we're not on our way to Wales. We're on our way to Bedford. Yes, Bedford. Sporting Targets to be precise. And we are heading over there to meet Matt from TheGunFitCompany. Matt and I have been chatting over several months now, and one of the big things that I've always promoted is the fact that, you know, to optimise your shooting and to get the best of what you do is to ensure you have the right equipment. And part of that, of course, is making sure that your gun fits. So I know there are lots of people out there that will say they can pick a gun off the shelf and regardless of stock length, etc., 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 they can shoot it. And I don't doubt that. But the point for me is, if it fits, then you get the best of it. And I've always said, if you can buy the best equipment, it's going to help your confidence, it's going to help your shooting, and it's going to basically give you everything you want and a bit more. So we've decided we're going to meet up today. We're going to head over to Sporting Targets. Matt is going to actually do a full gun fit for me. So I've had a few gun fits in the past, and you know, stock measurements and combs and, you know, castings and things like that. But what Matt's going to do today is a full A to Z of a gun fit. And subject to what he finds and subject to what the gun fit comes out like, we're then going to move forward and we're going to see if we can actually get some gun stocks made for the Berettas, get them fitted, and hopefully improve or eliminate those misses that we get every now and again, not all the time. So yeah, we're going to head over there. I'm not going to say it's brilliant sunshine and we're going to have a lovely dry day, because guess what? Yeah, you guessed it, it is raining. It's something to do with the fact that the moment I get a gun out, it rains. So we're going to get wet, I'm sure, but keep following, enjoy. Guys, we're here, Sporting Targets. Not our normal ground, I have to say, so it's going to be interesting to have a look around and see what's going on. And of course, we're here to meet Matt. Good morning.
JP, how are you?
Very well, sir. How are you?
Cannot complain, keeping out of mischief.
That's the main thing. So guys, as I explained, we are going to have Matt measure us, not literally, measure us for guns, measure stocks, casts, you name it, all that sort of stuff, and we are going to see how our current equipment fares with something that Matt's going to size up for us. So yeah, Matt, we're going to leave it in your capable hands.
Fantastic. Yep.
Let you tell us what we're doing wrong.
So I think to start with, we'll have a look at your current gun, put it in the jig, see what measurements are coming out on the readings, and see what it should have a certain diameter to it that from factory. We'll make sure it is that.
Yep.
Get your mounting the gun inside to start with. Have a little look at that, and then we'll start to change the tri-gun, set the dimensions differently,
okay,
and see if we can make some improvements on what you currently have.
All right, great. Can I just ask, one of the big things that for me, as I'm sure you know from the channel, is we are all about game shooting. So, you know, I appreciate, you know, from my perspective, I'm a big believer that gun fit is up at the top of the pile, and as I've said to our followers before, you know, always buy the best equipment you can afford, because at the end of the day, not only yes, okay, is it going to be better than something that's not quite as, possibly as good as the lower end of the, or the middle end of the market, but it's also going to give you the confidence to obviously have a better day, take those birds that possibly you might not get to if you didn't have that confidence. So from my perspective, obviously with you today, I'd like to focus on the fact that we are a game shooter.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and I think as you and I have probably already know, a lot of that's mounting guns is you don't have the same time frames as you do when you're shooting clays.
Of course.
So if we can bear that in mind when we're doing what we're going to do today.
Yeah, of course. So comparing it to, I don't know, sporting clay shooting as an example, the setup will be varied slightly. We're going to try and optimize how you control the gun into the shoulder, how the head pressure sits, and you could say there's a split difference between game shooters and clay shooters, how the setup works, but I would say it's more of an individual person's preference on what they like to have in a fit. So a classic example might be how much pressure you put on your cheek into the gun. Certain clay shooters, you know, they're grinding their cheekbone into the gun to make sure they're locked in and strong on the position. Others are floating their head away from the gun and barely resting it on there. And they're not right or wrong, it's what works for the individual.
Absolutely.
And I would say definitely with game shooting, you could potentially look towards having a more forgiving fit, maybe slightly lower in the comb, looking at the grip specs to make sure that it lifts into the cheek and shoulder correctly every time. Because you know what it's like when you're in the when you're on the peg, you haven't got a lot of time sometimes, and you just want to be able to get the gun there. You won't have to worry about trying to drive your cheek into the gun or make sure your head's up the front of the gun. You just want to minimise your movement into the cheek and shoulder to make sure that it's going to be right.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We'll start looking at that and see what we can do.
All right, great stuff.
Brilliant stuff. So this is your gun?
That's mine.
Excellent. I'd hope it's your gun. How long have you had it for?
I had this pair made for me in 6 years ago now.
Okay.
So they're sort of like a trusted old pair of shoes, really.
Yeah, of course.
Everything that I need to do, they do well, and I enjoy shooting them. It was the first time I went for a classic grip over a Prince of Wales grip over a pistol grip.
Sure.
And that made me nervous, I will be honest.
Yeah.
And I've actually got the 20 ball versions of that gun.
Very good.
Where I actually went with a pistol grip on those, and that was purely because the 20s are a lot lighter, you're throwing them around a lot more,
sure,
and I wanted something to hang on to.
Yeah.
Whereas with the 12s, I went with obviously the pistol grip just because, one, I wanted to have a bit of a change, two, I actually liked it, and with the 12s I just thought I'm not throwing it around as much as the 20s, so it suited what I was going to use it for.
Yeah, sure. A pummel grip on an over and under can be very easy to control as well for game shooting, because the radius sweeps back, your hand's got a little bit of movement
and I do tend to find I do that.
Yeah.
I do twist the gun a little bit more than I probably should on occasion.
Okay, interesting. That could be another reason as well. The comb, how far forward it is into the grip as well. If you find your thumb is touching on top onto the comb to try and get your hand into position, that can cant the gun as well. There's lots of small tweaks and variations that can affect how the gun sits. It could also be the cast at the back of the gun.
Obviously for me, being in the chair, the biggest issue for me is obviously not being able to move my feet.
Yes.
So obviously I have to position myself in a manner that I have my 180 degree shooting area.
Yes.
The problem being is that obviously I've got a lot of metal work on the left side. So to go this way is fine, but to go that way, that's now my max.
Yes.
So that is one of the reasons why I always tend to sit at sort of 45 degrees to where the birds are coming, so I can have my driven birds there, and I can still reach across to there, but I can also reach the other way as well.
Yeah, of course.
What I do tend to find is that on occasion I overreach.
Yeah, sure.
And that's then when I do twist.
Yeah, okay.
And because I'm over here,
Yeah.
so I actually do find that I do sometimes twist it out of my shoulder.
Sure. And that's where we want that more forgiving mount to be. 100%. Yeah, I completely understand. Okay, no problem. So what I'll do, I'll put this in the jig, see what the measurements are coming up at it, and have a look.
All right, brilliant.
Very cool. Perfect. Any excessive recoil at all?
No, I tend to use 34.5s through it in most of my season.
Sure.
Because I tend to shoot a lot of high stuff, Matt.
Yeah.
If I'm shooting over in Norfolk or somewhere like that, and it's not early season, so you know I'm shooting pheasant, not partridge, then I tend to shoot a 30 gram 6 through it.
Nice. Okay.
And to be honest, there's not a lot of recoil on it. It's only when you get up to the 36s you tend to get a bit of a bite if you don't quite have it right in your shoulder or that type of thing. But no.
Okay. Good.
I did change the pad on the back because it has a wooden heel plate normally.
Sure.
So I put the Beretta
Microcell.
the mod pad on the back, just really for more of a comfort, because I found the heel plate's got quite a sharp bottom edge. And
Yes.
If you miss it in your shoulder and it does hit you, it hurts.
Yes. So did you find the toe was pushing in a little bit? Yeah. Okay. So generally,
It tends to be curved like that, don't they?
they do. They put a little bit more length onto the toe normally
Yeah.
for the wooden heel plates. I think they're made of cherry, if I remember correctly. And what you'll find is they do that when you're stretching on a high tall pheasant. Okay, the toe needs to be still making contact with the chest, so they make sure the toe is a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Classic side-by-sides as well, you'll find the toe's a lot longer, and it basically comes back to the pitch of the gun. So the pitch will be going closer towards 90 degrees rather than 86, 85, which a modern sporting pad on this would put it back to.
Right, okay.
Okay, so funnily enough, that was one of my thoughts straight away, was is the pitch going to be right on the gun? And it depends on body shape essentially,
Yeah.
whether or not broad in the chest or broad in the shoulders, and you need that extra reach on the toe or need it taking away.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, you've probably done the right thing there straight away, which is good. And yeah, the measurements on it are coming up pretty standard, which is great. You've got 36mm at the front and then 55 at the back of the gun.
Okay.
So if you're reading most of Beretta's pages on what their comb heights are, you're going to be looking around that mark.
That sort of size.
Exactly.
Okay.
Very little cast in the gun as well. 3mm, 5mm, 3mm, 6mm. And yeah, it looks like a very nice EEOO. Let's get the gun in your shoulder.
Okay.
And have a little look, see what you see. If I could get you to turn around.
Yep.
And then what we'll use, there's a couple of sensors on the wall there, just as some reference points, okay?
Yep.
If we go into the centre there, actually, would that be okay?
Yep.
Perfect, thank you, just so I can get around. And then all I want you to do is just mount the gun a couple of times at some various angles, okay?
Okay. Which angles do you want them at?
So to start with, can you see the security camera just there on the wall?
This one or this one in the middle?
One in the centre.
Yep.
If you go for that one to start with, that'd be great. Just relax, mount the gun a couple of times for me, and then I'll ask you some questions, okay? Yep, okay, and again. Yep, and again. Okay, and again. Now mount the gun towards that camera over there for me.
Just smooth it.
Yep, sure. Okay. And would you say that's your usual cheek pressure?
Yeah, I'm not one for getting right over the top.
Sure.
To be fair, because I think when you're game shooting,
Yep.
if you don't get it bang on every time, you get an awfully sore cheek.
Yes.
So I think I tend to float a little bit rather than getting it right on the...
You are floating very well there. Yeah, 100%. So...
Yeah, I think I have tried, don't get me wrong, I have tried to get my cheek on it,
Yeah.
but I just don't find it comfortable.
Yeah, okay.
And I just tend to find it just...
Interestingly though, I think I can help you with that. Okay.
Right, okay.
So your grip is a very short radius.
Yeah.
Your hand's quite far up the gun, and
Yeah.
your elbow is quite high. So it's coming to body mechanics basically. We want to
Okay.
try and make this as easy for yourself as possible to mount. Where your elbow's high, it makes it more difficult for you to lift the gun into that cheek position.
Right.
I saw it then when you mounted it, it came in, you went so far, then you had to try and bring your head down
Yeah.
to the gun. So if we had a bigger radius on the gun
Yeah.
and a lower radius, it'd be like trying to lift the gun. So rather than trying to pull it up into your cheek and shoulder, you'd be just lifting it into the cheek.
Fine. Okay.
So I've got in my motor, I've got some grips and another skeleton stock I just want to set up for
Okay.
you, because I know the grip on that is a longer radius.
Okay.
And then we'll be able to soon tell whether or not that's going to help. But before we do that, let me just have a look at your eye position as well.
Sure.
Do you keep both eyes open?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, any issues with eye dominancy that you know of?
Not that I know of.
Wonderful. Let me just stand there.
Sure.
Perfect, sorry. And then just mount the gun into my eye. That's great. So yeah, hold it there. I know the gun's empty. So yeah, you're looking well above the top of that. Okay, interesting. And again, one more time into my eye. I know it's empty. Hold it steady. And if you could just hold there for me for a second. Yeah, okay, that's very light pressure. Lovely. Okay, let me take the gun. What I'm going to do, I'm going to grab some more gear out the motor.
Sure.
Okay. I literally just picked these up last night, so they should fit.
Okay.
Okay.
No
and
worries.
we'll have a little look. Take a break for a second.
Great.
Let's get you set up. This is an STE skeleton stock. Caesar Greeny have given me this to play with for a little bit, and I'm helping people set them up in the UK. They're quite new to the country. I've just taken order of 5-6 different grips. So
you can literally change the grip on that stock?
yeah, so
Wow.
Beretta 680 series, Maruku Browning 525s, Krieghoff K80, Blaser F3, customer brings their gun. I can literally put that straight onto their gun and take the measurements and set them up directly with it.
Wow.
So
Impressive.
be able to measure them off their own action and barrel, which is quite important. And I've got a sporting one, not the glove grip, so I'm just going to swap that over and get you set up with this one.
Okay.
Because as nice as your WL is, because it's got the side plating, I can't fit that on there, unfortunately.
No worries.
Have you ever seen a skeleton stock like a TSK or an Ergo?
No.
No? Okay. So normally when you adjust the cast on them, you can only pivot them around a central point. So when you add cast on, it removes it from the heel.
Right.
And then the same with the drop, it's normally in parallel. These, like my Trigun, you can actually bend and drop and cast properly. So it's really clever. And fingers crossed, it should be a very easy swap to get the other grip on there, he says. Universal grips, okay, for right hand, left hand. But basically, because the radius is much sharper, then you should be able to have better purchase to lift the gun into your shoulder.
Okay.
The theory is solid. Right. So your gun currently is 35-55. Right. What I'm going to do is set you up with a tri-gun to those measurements.
Okay.
And then we'll be able to compare it with the different grip straight away to see if that makes an improvement.
Okay.
And then we'll start looking at how we can change the cast, heel measurement, comb heights to see if we can improve your current setup.
Okay.
So you might have heard a couple of different styles of stock, like parallel comb, standard sporting and game, Monte Carlos. I think for what we want to achieve today, we're going to be looking at a standard sort of sporting comb height rather than a Monte Carlo or a parallel comb.
Okay.
There are reasons to have a parallel comb.
Just explain to the guys that are at home watching the difference between those combs that you just said.
So it all depends on the height of the front of the gun to the back of the gun. So at the comb and at the heel. If the comb is parallel, the measurement will be relative to the rib all the way through at the same height. Let's say 40mm from the front, 40mm to the back, and you won't have any drop in the gun. I'm always a big fan of a little bit of drop, but nothing too dramatic. When you're shooting game, your head moves on the gun, so you need to be able to keep your eye lifting into position over the top of the rib, because if it stayed completely parallel all the time, your eye, where it sits correctly on the gun, as it comes up the gun, your eye will start to drop into the back of the breech, potentially. There is some positives about it for fixed angle, like skeet and trap. Certain heights, you're able to position your head in on the gun at any angle, and it'll be exactly the same. But if you've got a lot of movement, it's good to have the gun moving with your cheek as well. Okay. Doesn't have to be much, because also, on the flip side of that, you want to be able to reduce muzzle flip as much as possible, and the straighter the comb, the more parallel the comb, the less muzzle flip you achieve.
Okay. So basically there, Matt, what you're doing is all those adjustments, you're basically replicating what I've currently got on my original gun.
That's right.
However, all we've done is we've changed the
grip style, just to see what difference that'll make instantly. Right, so that's not too high.
So the length of the stock you've kept the same?
I'll keep everything the same, just to get you to mount it to see if it consistently comes up the same, whether or not the grip's going to make a difference.
Okay.
And then we'll start looking at changing lengths of pull and drop cast if we need to. Wonderful. Let's have a look at that in your shoulder. Okay.
Same again.
Yep, perfect. So to the centre. So if you can see there, your finger's already dropped into a more central line with the trigger, because your hand is down underneath the gun.
Yeah.
Now in theory, that should be easier to lift into the cheek and shoulder straight away there. Nice.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like you have to drop your face to it as much.
Nowhere near.
Brilliant. So there is always an old wives' tale of bringing the gun to your cheek first rather than the shoulder.
Yeah.
I think it's got to be both at the same time while leaning forward as much as possible.
Yeah, that feels much better just coming up. It feels one movement rather than one movement and an adjustment.
Exactly. So
it's just a lot smoother.
Yeah. I would probably be inclined to say the most important part to gun fit is grip. If the grip's wrong, or if the grip's in a not optimum, it can make every other measurement very difficult to achieve or get to correctly.
The variance on this grip, though, from what I've been used to,
Yeah.
I mean, that feels absolutely enormous.
Yeah. So, yeah, it might be a little bit too thick in the action there, where the grip is, but from the actual length of being able to lift it, wonderful. And now what we're able to do, so if you remember, I mentioned your eye position was quite high.
Yeah.
Okay. We can start lowering the comb down to get your eye relative to the rib a little bit better, potentially. Okay. So let me just check it, make sure I'm seeing the same thing as I did before. If I just come around the front there. So gun's empty, straight into my eye. When you're ready, hold it there. So, yep, perfect. Seeing exactly the same as what I saw before, your eye well over the top of the rib.
Okay.
So we're going to go for that light cheek pressure again.
Okay.
And what I'm going to try and do, I like the measurement in your shoulder there at 55 mil.
Okay.
I might make it a little bit higher.
Okay.
And then I'm going to bring the front down to make it slightly more parallel.
Okay.
So we're going to start at 40 at the front of the gun, and then keep it at about 50 at the back and see how that looks.
Okay.
Wonderful. Gun's empty. So,
thanks, man.
No problem. That's 50 mil at the back, 40 mil at the front.
Okay.
Okay, with a slightly better grip for what I would consider you need.
Yep.
And then it should just lift up to the cheek, still having light pressure, but your eye position should come in a little bit flatter. Okay, and again. And again. So yeah, you're softening right up on the pressure there. So it's almost a habit. You're trying to achieve what you want to see down the gun.
Yeah.
And you're altering it as you mount it.
Right.
So what we'll do, we'll go and get you on some clays on the tower and see how that changes on the cheek pressure.
Okay.
Because, yeah, at the moment...
Do you want me to have more cheek pressure on that stock then?
Yeah, a little bit. For consistent repeatability, basically. If you're floating your head all the time away from the gun, there is a very good chance you might be pulling your head away from the gun, or there might be variation. Good game shooting and clay shooting is all about consistent repeatability, okay? And sometimes if you can put a little bit more pressure onto the cheek, it makes it easier to be able to repeat that cheek pressure. Perfect.
So you want it more there?
Lovely. That's all. So I like to sort of say there's a sliding scale, 1 to 10. Okay. 10 being grinding your cheekbone into the gun, 0 you're floating your head. 3 or a 4. Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
How did that feel then? Still light pressure?
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking my face on the stock. It felt different to what I've been used to. Sure. But it didn't feel totally alien, if that makes sense either. So I think it's probably like you say, it's a habit.
Yes.
And it's probably readjusting that habit to actually be a better habit.
Yes. Exactly. But that's the wonderful thing about doing a gun fit or a consultation on gun fit. You're able to look at all aspects of the fitting, including yourself, and whether or not there's something we need to change for you or whether it's something we need to change for the gun. Okay. So what we'll do, we'll go and grab some gear, go and have a look at the towers and shoot some clays, okay?
Okay, great.
Very cool.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. What I want to do is just get you shooting that a couple of times.
Okay.
We'll start with your gun just to warm up.
Yeah.
I want to watch you, see how the cheek pressure is affected. Okay. And see how you actually pull the trigger and how you move the gun. Okay. Very cool. Go grab some ammo. Cool. And again.
Pull.
And again.
Pull.
And again.
Pull.
And how would you describe that cheek pressure of taking those shots?
It's very light.
It's very light. Yep. Good.
Yeah. If anything, I'm brushing against it. I'm not actually on it.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. Do it again.
Pull.
So not massively behind. Perfect. And again.
Pull.
Good. Perfect. Just trying to make sure too much, that's absolutely fine. Yeah. How did the cheek pressure feel that time? Light pressure?
Very, very little, if anything, man.
Yeah, perfect.
I'm not feeling the stock against my cheek. I am, but it's not.
Yeah, it's not up in there.
It's not up in there.
Yeah, okay. So I'll tell you what, it's going to feel slightly uncomfortable to begin with, okay? Just try 10% more pressure on your cheek and let's see where we end up with that, okay? And then we'll get the try gun out. Okay, when you're ready. So forget about hitting the clay. We know you can hit that target. I want you to just focus on slightly more pressure on the cheek, that's all.
Okay.
When you're ready.
Pull.
Good. Yep, and again.
Pull.
Go on, slightly more pressure. Yeah, fantastic. Where do you think you ended up?
I'm ahead of it and I'm to the right
Fantastic.
of the clay.
Yep, you are. So, cut your lead back a fraction and see what happens, just to make you hit it, and then I'll check your eye position. There we go.
Same pressure on the start.
Same pressure. Forget hitting the target.
Pull.
Good stuff. Yep, and again.
Pull.
Here we go. Perfect. Okay.
Now on that second one,
Yeah.
that really vibrated my teeth.
Did it? Interesting. So it might be a little bit too high at the front, and where you put applying that pressure, the angle of the gun is just kicking into the cheek position.
I wouldn't want to shoot a game day with my cheek like that all day.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Interesting. Let's try the tri-gun then.
Okay.
This is going to be fun. So as I said, it's slightly higher at the back, slightly lower at the front.
Okay.
2 in there for you, okay? Same target. Have a little look, see what you think.
Pull.
And again, a little bit behind him, you know what to do.
Pull. A little behind on that as well, I think.
Interesting, do it again. Don't read too much into it. Yep, and again.
Pull.
So just start a little bit further behind it, drive in. Smallest chip I've seen all week, but you got there, well done. How's that feel? Unnatural?
It feels very unnatural.
Yeah, sure.
It really does. There's no vibration, there's no kick,
Good,
but I do feel my cheek on it,
good. Okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So it feels like there's a little bit more pressure there, and it's lifting into the cheek and elbow. I think you're very well acquainted with your gun and you know how to work around it. But looking at body mechanics, how your elbows are sitting at the moment as you're holding the gun, everything's trying to come from the back of the shoulder. If you dropped your elbow, brought your
Drop
hand...
my elbow down,
Yeah, both elbows down,
like
and
this.
then bring your left hand back slightly. Not as extreme as that. There we go. You're able, if you find yourself stretching on a target, you're actually able
But
to...
to me, to get my arm there, it just doesn't feel natural because my arm and chest are so big,
push down.
and I just can't. I feel like I'm all squashed up.
Okay, try it again. Go where you feel comfortable. Nice.
Now that's comfortable for me.
And that looks nice. And where your elbow is there, it's a little bit lower than what it was before.
Right. Okay.
So, not your right elbow, sorry, your left
Left
elbow.
elbow.
That's the one I'm interested in.
Right,
So when you're
okay.
pushing and pulling the gun, it's all coming from that.
Right. Okay.
Because normally you'd use your shoulders and your hips to
Okay.
move the gun. We've got to use arms.
Now, I'm seeing straight down the centre of the rib,
Yep.
but I have to be honest. I feel like the gun, to me, when I'm looking down at the gun, is like that.
Perfect. Just show me the gun's empty. Let me have a look.
Gun's
Perfect.
empty.
Mount him up that way. Hold it there. Yep, I can see that. So if we just apply a little bit more twist into the gun, should we be able to sort that out? And try that for me. That's great.
Yeah.
Nice. Better, worse, or about the same?
I would say that's better.
Good. Hold it there. Yep, okay. And then just a 10% more pressure. Okay. Good.
I'm down straight down the middle of the rib there.
Yeah, nice. That's looking better. So where we had the setup originally from inside the building and how you're mounting it outside can vary ever so slightly.
Yeah.
And I think we just need to optimise the gun for that. So like you said, your eye was up the left-hand side there. We've put a little bit more cast on toe and the heel, and then just offset your face a little bit as well. So the big question is, do we need to change the fit of the gun, or do we need to change how much pressure we put on our cheek?
I think it's pressure on the cheek.
A little bit, yeah.
I mean,
think so.
clearly the grip is really important.
Yes.
And I think certainly, the difference that you've made on the comb compared to what I've got is, again,
Yeah.
important. But I definitely think it's getting that cheek
Yeah.
on there rather than floating.
Yes. I'm
Feels
happy.
Good.
That's okay then. So, yep, consistency's better, which is nice. It looks like it's lifting easier into your shoulder, which
definitely.
is good.
You know,
Perfect, yeah, it's just there, isn't it?
you know, it's...
Yeah, nice. So I think we've got some positives to take away from that for sure.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
Yeah, we'll get it down on paper for you.
Great stuff. Thanks,
Brilliant.
mate.
Hey, well done, JP.
Thanks, buddy.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
all of that. Guys, so there you go. Even the best can get it wrong. There you go. I've been shooting with the wrong gun for how many years? No, only joking. The gun's been fine, but as we all know, there's different measurements that we need to alter and amend, and our styles change, and all these different types of things, what clothes we wear. And you'll see today I have come pretty much dressed as if I'm going to shoot game, to make sure that, you know, I had the right layers on and everything else, so that, you know, Matt and I were starting from the right point rather than behind. So yeah, Matt's going to write it all down, and next stage is getting some new stocks, I suppose, for the Berettas. So guys, if you are interested in getting a gun fit, then obviously contact Matt at TheGunFitCompany. We'll put the link below now. Click on that, give Matt a shout, and he can arrange to do what he's done with us today and get you guys shooting more consistently, shooting better birds, having the confidence to take those really high stuff as well. And with a bit of good fortune, you guys, when you're down in Wales and everywhere else, you'll be knocking them bandy. So guys, thanks for watching once again. Please do make sure you share, like and subscribe for more content. Guys, we're going to see you really soon. Take care, all the best.
One Matt likes, and say use that one.
I'll just say.
Oh Christ!
Yeah.
Christ Almighty! Wow, this feels like I've got like a 12-inch stock and all sorts on it. It doesn't feel right at all.
Doesn't come up as nicely, does it?
No, it just feels weird. Really, really weird.
I've opened a can of worms now, haven't I? Sorry.
Wow.